The signal. The soft blue glow of monitoring screens bathed the control room in a ghostly hue. Somewhere beneath the icy crust of the Canadian Rockies, deep within Earth's most advanced deep space listening post, John Carr leaned back in his chair, letting the cold remains of his coffee slip past his lips. It was bitter, flat, but familiar. And familiarity kept a man sane during graveyard shifts like these. The year was 2157. Humanity had finally stretched its limbs beyond its cradle. Colonies dotted the solar system. Ships skimmed the void on fusion drives. But still, the stars were silent. John liked it that way. The silence, the hum of machines, the predictable chaos of cosmic background noise. It all comforted him. He was just another node in a global web of listeners' ears pointed at the void, waiting for something, anything that hinted they weren't alone. Tonight, like every other night, the data scrolled by. Static bursts, pulsars, cosmic rays, all noise, all known. And then something blinked on screen 7. A spike, small, barely a hiccup in the ocean of static. Most people wouldn't have noticed it, certainly not after a 12-hour shift. But John Carr didn't drink coffee for the caffeine. He sat upright, heart suddenly thudding. The spike repeated, then again. "Hey, Mike," John called across the room, not looking away. "You seeing this?" Mike Lim. His colleague shuffled over with the tired gait of someone who had seen too many false positives. Another random burst. "Not this one. Look." John isolated the waveform. The pattern emerged slowly like a whisper from across time. Not noise, not natural. It was deliberate, purposeful. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 1. Prime numbers, a sequence older than language, a code no civilization would mistake. "Holy shit," Mike muttered. "It's real." It was a call, clear, mathematical, and universal. A whisper in the dark, a distress signal. The room exploded into activity like someone had set off a fire alarm. Lights flared, doors hissed open. Scientists from adjacent modules stormed in, still in lab coats, some barefoot, all wide-eyed. "Where's it coming from?" John's fingers danced across the interface. Right ascension, 18.7 declination, 45.1, about 40 light years, uncharted. No one spoke for a heartbeat. Then the lead technician, a woman named Dr. Rosa Beltran, stepped forward. "Get command on the line. Wake up whoever you need. We need the Endeavor." Captain James Miller was halfway through his eggs when the call came. He hated being interrupted during breakfast, especially when the food was real. But when the badge on his comm lit up red, he set his fork down, wiped his mouth, and tapped the interface. "Talk to me." "Captain, this is operations. You're needed in command. Now. Emergency drill." "It's not a drill, sir. It's contact." 2 words, that's all it took. Miller didn't even grab his jacket. The command center buzzed like a kicked hornet's nest. Military uniforms, lab coats, corporate liaisons, every sector of humanity's expansion effort was represented. At the front of the room stood Admiral Evelyn Thompson, flanked by intelligence officers and astrophysicists. A massive screen showed the signal's trajectory pinpointed in the outer edges of a brown dwarf system nicknamed Cygnus Vi-14. Uncharted, untouched, undisturbed. "Signals have been repeating for 3 Earth days," Thompson said as Miller entered. "Identical pattern every 2 hours. Prime numbers, universal constants, and a structure." Miller raised a brow. "Structure." She nodded. "Buried under the signal is a frame header packet style, digital formatting. Someone out there isn't just screaming, they're screaming in binary." He whistled. "Any idea who?" "We don't know. We've never seen a language architecture like this. But whatever it is, it's old, decaying, and it's faint." How faint? 50 decibels above background. Barely made it through the dust cloud. "If we hadn't been pointed exactly there, we would have missed it," Miller finished. Thompson turned to him, eyes sharp. "We're prepping the ESS Endeavor. You leave in 12 hours. Full crew. Full crew. Chief Roberts is prepping engineering. Tom Cooper's in. Maria Diaz is already in navigation." Miller's heart picked up pace. "What's our mission scope?" Thompson didn't blink. "Rescue." The Endeavor stood like a silver spear rising from the cradle of the Earth. Over a kilometer-long, powered by fusion reactors strong enough to split moons, it was the most advanced search and rescue vessel ever built by humans. And still out in the galaxy, was likely a child's toy compared to what might be waiting. Miller stood on the observation deck as launch crews swarmed the hull. In the distance, Earth rotated slowly beneath them, blue-bright and peaceful, unaware that its children were about to take a leap that could change everything. All systems green, came Kate's voice through the intercom. Fusion drive is hot and stable. Miller's hand rested on the glass. His reflection stared back a man in his early 40s, weathered by duty, but still burning with curiosity. "This is it," he said almost to himself. "Sir," came a voice from behind. He turned. Maria stood in the doorway, tablet in hand. "Navigation's locked. We're ready to jump as soon as you give the word." He nodded. Then over the ship's internal comm, "All hands prepare for departure. Plot course for signal origin. Let's show the galaxy what humanity is capable of." The ship trembled as the fusion drives flared to life, bright as a newborn star. The ESS Endeavor surged forward, slicing through the dark like a blade through velvet. The unknown awaited. And this time humanity wasn't just listening. They were answering. Departure. 12 hours later, the ESS Endeavor sliced through the darkness like a predator with a purpose. Inside, the hum of the ship's systems blended with quiet tension. The bridge was a cathedral of metal and glass. Curved panels was displaying star maps, gravitational telemetry, power grids, all converging on one focal point, the anomaly 40 light-years away. Captain James Miller stood in the command pit, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the central display. Every second that passed pushed them deeper into the unknown. "All systems nominal," said Chief Engineer Kate Roberts, seated at the engineering console with sleeves rolled up and a fuel gauge glowing green beside her. "Fusion reactors stable. Heat output at expected levels. We're cruising smooth for now." Miller gave her a nod. "Let's hope we stay that way." He scanned the bridge. Each crew member wore the face of quiet confidence. Not bravado, not recklessness, just resolve. Maria Diaz, navigation officer, leaned over her panel, her fingers a blur of movement. She was 27, but her flight instincts had beaten top brass simulations 10 years her senior. "Next nav point in 43 seconds, she reported. "Gravity drag minimal. Sensors are clean." Miller exhaled. That's something. It wasn't just about executing a deep space rescue. It was about what they were stepping into. If this really was first contact, and all signs pointed to yes, it would define humanity's place in the galaxy. And they were doing it alone. No backup, no escort, just the Endeavor and its crew charging into the void because someone out there had whispered for help and humans had decided to answer. 3 hours into the mission, Admiral Thompson's encrypted message arrived. It wasn't long, just a single line sent over tight beam. "This is humanity's first true step. Make sure we don't stumble." Miller read it 3 times, then deleted it from the system. The weight wasn't new, but now it was personal. In the ship's galley, Tom Cooper adjusted a diagnostic schematic on a floating holodisplay while chewing on a protein bar that tasted like compressed regret. "Not exactly steak," he muttered. "Not exactly your job either," Kate said as she slid into the seat beside him. "You're running nav redundancies now. Redundancies, triple checks, manual overrides. This whole mission has about 24 ways to go wrong, and I'm allergic to explosions." She smirked. "You really think we're ready for this?" Tom looked at her, his eyes serious now. "I think nobody ever is. That's why we go anyway." In the observation bay, Maria stared out into the endless black, her tablet forgotten in her lap. A whisper of static came through her earpiece. Maria Miller's voice said gently, "Take a break. You've been recalculating since we launched." She blinked. "Sorry, Captain. Just trying to thread the path." Miller joined her eyes, following the stars. "It's not just a course. It's a message. Every adjustment you make says something." "Like what?" "Like we give a damn." She smiled faintly. "Then I'll keep recalculating." 37 hours after launch, they passed their final jump beacon. Ahead was nothing but uncharted space. No beacons, no nav buoys, just blind math and a prayer. "We're crossing into the red," Maria said, voice tense. "No fallback trajectories from this point. This is the one-way door." "Understood," Miller said. Then louder to the ship, "All hands, this is the captain. We're leaving mapped space. From here on, it's up to us. Remember why we're doing this. Not for glory, not for politics. Because someone out there said they needed help." He paused. "Let's go show the universe how humans respond to a distress call." The jump was fast, violent. Fusion fields surged. The hull groaned under the strain. Everyone was strapped in, but even then, several crew were left with bruised ribs and sore necks. And then, just like that, they were there, at the edge of a dying system. A dim brown dwarf loomed ahead, angry orange flickering across its surface. Radiation warnings began ticking in the background. Then they saw it, the Starweaver. Massive, elegant, alien. Suspended near the brown dwarf's gravity well, It hung like a titan brought low, its hull glowing silver under the failing light, its body crippled and drifting toward death. Gasps broke out across the bridge. "My God," Kate whispered. "That thing is 5 times our size." "And it's being pulled in," Maria added quickly. "Trajectory shows it has less than 2 weeks before it crosses the event horizon." Then the signal came through. A voice mechanical, strange, but unmistakably intelligent. "This is Admiral Voss of the Meridian science vessel Starweaver. Identify yourselves." Miller stepped forward. "This is Captain James Miller of the Earthship Endeavor. We received your distress signal. We're here to help." Silence. Then laughter. Dry. Not cruel, but certainly skeptical. "Earth sent humans," Voss said, almost in disbelief. "We are aware of your species. You barely possess fusion power. Some of your ships still use combustion engines. What makes you think you can assist us?" Kate stepped beside Miller, arms folded. "Maybe you can start by telling us what happened. Even primitive humans can surprise you." First contact. The face on the screen was unsettling. It was humanoid vaguely, with smooth reflective skin like liquid chrome. Its large eyes shimmered and shifted in color, cool blue to burning orange to a faint violet, as if emotion manifested through light. There was no hair, no visible mouth, just intelligence, ancient and deep, staring through the screen. "This is Admiral Voss," the alien voice repeated, filtered and precise. "Commander of the Starweaver. Your arrival is unexpected." Captain Miller squared his shoulders. "We received your distress signal. Earth sent us because we don't ignore calls for help no matter who sends them." Another pause. Then something that could only be described as alien laughter filled the room. It wasn't mocking, not quite, but it carried a sharp edge of disbelief. "Humans," Voss said slowly, "of all species, I suppose it is poetic. You who have barely clawed your way into interstellar travel, your vessel's output barely registers on our energy spectrum. And yet here you are." Kate bristled beside him, but Miller raised a hand to keep her calm. "We may not have antimatter drives or exotic shields," he said coolly, "but we do have a working ship and a crew ready to try on." Try what? Voss's eyes pulsed a deep indigo. "Our ship was studying the gravitational anomalies of the brown dwarf when an unexpected feedback event crippled our main antimatter core. We avoided full annihilation but lost all main propulsion. We are now caught in an unstable gravity well. 2 prior rescue attempts by Allied vessels failed. The last ship was torn apart during withdrawal. We were advised to evacuate." "Then why are you still here?" Maria asked from her station. There was a long pause. "We refused to abandon our vessel," Voss said. "I and 50 of my crew stayed behind. We believed anyone might come." "And your allies didn't?" "They calculated the odds of success at less than 11%. Tom Cooper scoffed, not bothering to hide his disgust. "So they did the math and left you to die." "It was a logical decision," Voss replied, but there was something different in his tone now, something bitter. Kate stepped forward, red hair pulled back, eyes fierce. "You're right about one thing, Admiral. We're not like your people, because we don't make decisions purely based on survival rates. We've launched rescue ops with worse odds," Miller added, "and we don't stop just because the math looks ugly." "You speak as if courage outweighs capability." Miller stepped closer to the display. "Sometimes it does." The bridge went quiet. Voss's eyes swirled, unreadable. "Your fusion drive is insufficient to tow us. You lack gravitic anchoring. Your structural integrity is simpler," Kate cut in, "but more reliable. And more adaptable. Your ship is massive, sure, but we've handled big things before." Tom leaned over the console. "Captain, I've been scanning their hull. Their systems may be down, but the structure's still holding. If we can get close, we might be able to rig a physical connection. Then, we slingshot," Maria said, turning from her screen. "We use the gravity wells of the system's gas giants, like early Terran probes. Simple, brutal physics." Voss's screen flickered. "That is ancient methodology. Inefficient. Crude. It's also genius," Kate replied. "Gravity assist got us across the solar system before we even had fusion. The only thing we need is timing. And nerve," Maria added. Miller crossed his arms. "So what'll it be, Admiral? You going to sit there and wait for death while the math tells you it's safe? Or are you going to let us try something stupid, dangerous, and maybe, just maybe, brilliant?" The alien was silent for a long moment. Then slowly the color in Voss's eyes shifted to a tone the crew hadn't seen before. A deep, rich violet, almost contemplative. "Very well," Voss said at last. "We will allow you to attempt your maneuver, but I must inform my crew they will need to be prepared for hell, Tom offered. Kate smirked. Welcome to how humans do things. The two ships hovered like dancers frozen mid-motion. The Endeavor maneuvered closer, engines low and quiet, until the silver bulk of the Starweaver loomed over them like a wounded god. From engineering, Kate's voice came over the comms. Drive coupling arrays extended, magnetic clamps locked, preparing hardline interface. Tom was already in the docking bay, suiting up for external inspection. On the bridge, Miller issued final orders. We need gravity map overlays. Maria, give me every fluctuation around the gas giants in a 2-hour window. Kate, run power flow tests at 120%. I don't want any surprises. Voss's voice returned. I will inform my crew that their survival may now depend on primitive Terran ingenuity. You're damn right it does, Miller replied, and we're not about to let you down. As the screen flicked off, Tom turned to Kate, helmet in hand. They think we're idiots. Kate grinned. They're half right. Which half? The part where we do the impossible anyway. They bumped gloves and headed for the airlock. Outside, stars shimmered. The brown dwarf growled in the distance, and two ships, one ancient, one young, prepared to do something that neither should have survived. But they would try anyway, because that's what humans do. The plan. The main conference room aboard the Endeavor had been transformed into a hive of motion and holograms. Floating displays shimmered with orbital paths, stress vectors, and dynamic simulations of gravity fields in constant flux. At the center of it all stood Kate Roberts, hair in a messy bun, eyes bloodshot from hours without sleep, but glowing with intensity. So here's the deal, she began, pointing toward a glowing 3D model of the system. We don't have the power to drag the Starweaver out by brute force. What we do have is orbital mechanics. Newton, baby. She flicked her wrist. The hologram zoomed in. 3 massive gas giants floated around the brown dwarf, their gravitational pulls overlapping like the arms of titans. We use slingshots. Controlled gravity assists. 1, 2, 3, timed down to the second. If we hit all the windows correctly, we'll slowly break the Starweaver out of the gravity well. Tom Cooper stood beside her, running calculations in real time. We'll connect our fusion drives directly to their structural anchor points. Then we sync thrust at precise vectors, matching every assist point. Admiral Voss's image hovered above the center table. His expression unreadable, his eyes a simmering swirl of light. Your plan relies on physical connection. If even one attachment point fails during acceleration, both vessels will be torn apart. That's why we'll reinforce the mounts, Kate said. We'll weld the connectors, use magnetic locks, and pump power through redundancies. It's going to rattle like hell, but it'll hold. Voss remained quiet, eyes now a deep violet. This method, it is primitive. Kate smiled. Primitive doesn't mean stupid, it means tested, proven, and still damn useful. In the following hours, chaos became choreography. Maria Diaz transformed her nav station into a gravity symphony. Layers of orbital data, gravitational shifts, radiation curves, and timing windows woven into a plan that no AI on Earth or beyond had ever dared attempt manually. Miller stood behind her, arms folded, watching as she adjusted each phase of the escape path with the care of a surgeon and the instinct of an artist. You ever done anything like this before, he asked. Not this insane, she replied without looking, but close. Think it'll work. She turned a confident smirk on her face. I'm a human navigating gravity with my gut and a few centuries of Newtonian know-how. Of course it'll work. Meanwhile, in the engineering bay, human and alien engineers worked side by side. The Meridians had reluctantly agreed to assist with reinforcing connection points on the hull. Tom stood with one of their lead structural analysts, a tall, crystalline-skinned being named Shar, debating tolerances and material stress coefficients. I'm telling you, Tom said, voice muffled by his helmet, your alloy resists compression, but under this kind of lateral stress, it'll shear like paper. We need carbon-locked weave on the contact nodes. Shar hesitated, then made an odd harmonic sound, Meridian body language for grudging agreement. You are inventive, he admitted, even if your technology is crude. We're humans, Tom replied. We specialize in making crude stuff do impossible things. By the end of the day, the entire Endeavor was humming like a living organism. Systems were tested, fail-safe, set manual overrides prepped. Captain Miller called the senior crew together for a final prep meeting. You've seen the numbers, he said. You know the risks. This plan depends on our timing, our precision, and our faith in each other. He looked each of them in the eye. Kate, your drives have to push a ship 5 times our mass. She nodded. They'll scream, but they'll push. Tom, those connectors can't fail. We lose one. I've triple locked every point and reinforced with internal bracing. They're solid. Maria timing. She smirked. I've got this dance memorized. He turned to the hollow of Admiral Voss. Your people ready? Voss's eyes were now a steady, amber, calculated confidence. They will be. Then let's do what humans do best, Miller said. Turn the impossible into the inevitable. As the crews dispersed, Voss lingered on the line. Captain, the alien said, may I ask, why? Why what? Why risk so much for a species you've never met, for a chance you know is small? Miller thought for a moment, then replied, because it was a voice in the dark, a plea for help. In humans, we answer those. There was silence. Then Voss spoke again, his voice quieter than before. Your species is not what we expected. Miller smiled. Good. In the docking bay, Tom and Kate stood side by side, watching the ship slowly realign into final formation. Think they'll make it? Tom asked, motioning toward the Starweaver's flickering silhouette. They have us, Kate said. That gives them better odds than most. He chuckled. Human arrogance. No, she replied, human belief. The first attempt. All systems green. Kate reported, her voice echoing across the Endeavor's bridge. Fusion drives online. Structural connection stable. We're locked and loaded. The view beyond the reinforced glass was nothing short of awe-inspiring and terrifying. The brown dwarf filled half the sky, a roiling mass of deep crimson and molten orange swirling with magnetic fury. Orbiting it like grim sentinels were the gas giants, each one massive, magnificent, and utterly indifferent to the fragile lives hovering near their gravitic claws. Maria's voice came through crisp and focused. First gravity assist in 3 minutes. Gas giant, Tarsus Alpha ahead. Course aligned. All nav markers verified. Captain Miller stood at the center of the bridge, strapped in but relaxed, eyes sharp. His voice was calm, controlled. Everyone brace yourselves. This will feel like slamming a race car into a wind tunnel. Sideways. On the main screen, the Starweaver loomed behind them, still majestic even in ruin. The reinforced fusion coupling arms connecting the two vessels glowed blue, vibrating slightly under the strain. Admiral Voss, Miller said through the intership comms, "Are your people ready?" The alien's face flickered onto the screen. His eyes had settled into a deep azure, what the humans had learned to interpret as focused determination. We are in position. Shield harmonics aligned, structural dampeners engaged. Then let's make history, Miller replied. Maria, go. The ships began to move in perfect unison. The Endeavor's fusion drives flared, pushing both vessels forward at increasing velocity. The gas giant Tarsus Alpha swelled in their view, a wall of atmosphere and gravity waiting to either lift them out or crush them entirely. As they approached, the forces became brutal. The hull groaned, the decks vibrated, warning systems flashed. Entering gravity well, Mariah announced, velocity climbing, maintaining vector. Connection points holding, Kate called out. Fusion output steady at 96%. Radiation levels climbing, Voss added, within acceptable range for now. Then just as the tension peaked, relief. The ship slingshotted around the gas giant, harnessing its pull like a whip crack. The velocity spike sent them arcing out of the well, gaining precious momentum, enough to begin pulling away from the brown dwarf's inexorable grip. Cheers erupted across the Endeavor's bridge. Holy hell, Kate breathed. It worked. Like riding a comet, Maria added with a grin. Even Admiral Voss appeared impressed. We have never employed such primitive force in celestial mechanics. But it was effective. Miller allowed himself a smile. That's how we roll. But the celebration lasted less than a minute. Radiation spike, Kate shouted suddenly, eyes darting to her console. Source brown dwarf surface. The main screen flared white as a massive solar flare erupted from the brown dwarf, a searing plume of radioactive plasma arcing directly toward their position. Maria's smile vanished. That flare is going to hit us in 20 seconds hard. The ship's shielding systems activated automatically, but the synchrony between the two vessels was delicate. Their connected systems weren't built for shared radiation dispersion. Shield harmonics, failing Voss's voice snapped through the comm. Our AI compensators are lagging. Control interference is escalating. Miller gripped his chair. Kate, we're losing synchronization between drive systems. If we don't realign, the next gravity assist will rip both ships in half. Options, he barked. Tom's voice cut through the chaos. Someone's going to have to go outside, adjust the external relays by hand. A beat of silence. Tom, no, Kate said. The radiation. I can take 10 minutes of exposure, Tom interrupted, already unbuckling. That's all I need. You could die out there, she shouted. If I don't go, we all die in here, he shot back, slipping on his suit. I'll take the tether, adjust the relays, and get back before the second slingshot. Miller looked at him, jaw tight. You're sure? I volunteered for space ops, didn't I? Tom gave a tight smile. This is why. In the docking bay, silence reigned as Tom cycled the airlock. The moment the outer hatch opened, the reality of the void hit like a fist. The brown dwarf boiled in the distance, monstrous and uncaring. His boots locked magnetically to the outer hull as he began the crawl toward the fusion couplings. Each step felt like an eternity. Point 1 reached, he radioed, adjusting power relay. Back on the bridge, Kate monitored his vitals, hands trembling despite her best efforts. Radiation levels at 60% tolerance, she called. 5 minutes until critical exposure. Understood, Tom replied, moving to point 2. The Starweaver's crew watched through their own viewports in stunned silence. Even Admiral Voss had gone quiet, eyes shifting through uncertain shades as the human worked in conditions no Meridian would dare attempt. Point 2, adjusted, Tom reported, voice strained. Final relay coming up. Just give me 30 more seconds. You got 2 minutes before exposure maxes out, Kate warned. Then I'd better hustle. Inside the Endeavor, the ship rocked as gravimetric interference from the next slingshot grew stronger. 10 seconds to second assist, Maria shouted. Is he clear? Miller demanded. Almost, Kate said, her voice thin. Final relay adjusted, Tom yelled through the comms. Synchronization restored. Get him back in, Miller ordered. Now. Tom kicked off the hull thrusters, flaring. The airlock doors opened just as the second assist hit like a cannon blast. The combined ships screamed through the gravity well of the second gas giant. Hulls groaned, lights flickered. But the couplings held. The alignment held. And Tom, barely conscious, was pulled from the airlock and into medical, his suit steaming with the radiation alarms blaring. Vital signs stable, but dropping, the medic called. He's alive, Kate whispered. On the bridge, silence gave way to soft applause, then cheers. Even the alien crew of the Starweaver responded. Some raised their hands, others simply stared wide-eyed. Admiral Voss appeared again, his eyes a color no human had seen before, deep violet edged with luminous green. In all our civilization's history, he said softly, we would never have attempted such a thing. We calculate. We minimize loss. We would have deemed this hopeless. Miller looked toward the med bay where Tom lay unconscious. That's the difference, he said. We don't stop when it gets hopeless. The walk. Tom Cooper lay motionless in the medical bay, his body bathed in sterile light, the beeping of scanners tracking his every breath. His face was pale. His skin burned red in places where radiation had seeped through the suit's outer mesh. But he was alive. Captain Miller stood beside the bed, arms folded silent. Kate Roberts was across the room, gripping a tablet with trembling hands as the med scanner projected blood work and neural data above Tom's chest. He shouldn't be awake for hours, she muttered, but his brain activity spiking. And then Tom's eyes flickered open. You look like hell, Miller said. Tom coughed, smiled weakly. You should see the other guy. The captain smirked, but the weight in his eyes didn't fade. You realize what you did was insane. Tom tried to shrug, but winced at the motion. Insanity's just a metric with bad PR. Kate stepped closer, trying to sound angry. You got cooked out there, you idiot. I recalibrated the sync nodes, didn't I? You were seconds from permanent cell collapse. Still here. The room fell quiet. Tom looked at both of them, then toward the observation panel, where he could see a sliver of the Starweaver floating beyond the Endeavor's hull. Did it work, he asked. Miller nodded. Perfectly. We're on track. One last slingshot left. Tom exhaled. Then it was worth it. Elsewhere aboard the Starweaver, the alien crew stood in muted disbelief. Even among a species that had mapped neutron drift fields and engineered quantum loop drives, what they had witnessed was unimaginable. A human flesh, fragile and finite, had walked outside a vessel bathed in lethal radiation, trusting nothing but sheer determination and quick calculations. In Meridian culture, survival was strategic. Losses were minimized through caution, optimization, and algorithms. They had no word for bravery and futility. But now, perhaps they needed one. Admiral Voss watched through his personal viewport. His eyes shimmered in a turbulent mix of gold and green, the colors of unease, and something dangerously close to admiration. Back on the Endeavor, Maria Diaz was still at her station. 18 hours without rest. Her eyes were bloodshot, but her hands were steady. The next gravitational assist had been recalculated again and again. The brown dwarf's radiation bursts had subtly altered the orbital drift of the final gas giant. That meant the original exit path was now too shallow. "We'll need to pass closer," she told Miller. "How much closer?" She hesitated. "Closer than we've ever modeled. Margin of error is 2 seconds. Any deviation beyond that, and both ships are shredded." "Jesus." Kate appeared on the bridge, exhaustion clinging to her shoulders. "And the drives? Running at 95%, she said. "Radiation cooks some of the outer coils. It's not enough. We need full output to punch through this last well." A voice crackled from the medbay speaker. "Route power through connection point 2. Miller turned to the screen. Tom's face appeared pale but alert. Kate shook her head. "No way. That's never been tested. You want to funnel all drive power through a single node that could overload the mount." "That could save everyone," Tom interrupted. Maria ran the numbers. Her eyes widened. "He's right. It's barely within structural tolerance. But it'll work." Kate muttered something under her breath. "This is insanity." "No," Miller said, locking eyes with her. "This is us." Final preparations began. Connection points 1 and 3 were powered down. Node 2 glowed a steady blue as the fusion drive's full force rerouted through it. On the bridge, every screen displayed some version of catastrophe in waiting. Hull stress thresholds, plasma feedback simulations, vibration risk models. But no one wavered. Admiral Voss appeared once more, his voice quieter than usual. "Our sensors indicate gravitational pull from the brown dwarf has increased by 3.7% in the last hour. The final window may be smaller than your models predict." Maria nodded. "We've adjusted." Voss tilted his head. "Do you humans always gamble with so little?" Kate grinned. "Only when it matters." In the final minutes, Miller opened the comms to both ships. "This is Captain Miller. In 60 seconds, we attempt what has never been done. We will slingshot a damaged alien vessel tethered to a fusion-powered Terran ship using basic orbital mechanics without AI navigation across a collapsing gravity field." He looked around his crew. Why? Because someone needed help. And humans answer. He turned to the screen. "To the Meridian crew, we thank you for trusting us. You didn't have to, but you did. And now we rise together. To my team," his voice softened, "no words will ever be enough. So instead, let's show the stars who we are." 30 seconds, Maria called. In the medbay, Tom watched from his bed, fingers clenched tight around the sheets. On the Starweaver, Admiral Voss stood among his crew, no longer commanding with cold precision, but with something approaching awe. On the Endeavor, Kate gritted her teeth as the final safety interlocks disengaged. "Power flow at 100%, she said. "Node 2 is stable. For now." Maria's hands danced across her console. 10 seconds. Outside, the gas giant loomed. Vast, ancient, merciless. 5, 4, 3, 2. Now, everything blurred. The combined ships were yanked into the gravity well like marbles through a drain. Every weld screamed, every light flickered. The hull groaned in protest, alarms howled. The single connection point burned white-hot, channeling raw power through a corridor of steel and fusion. Inside the bridge, the force crushed bodies against chairs. Muscles strained, bones trembled. For 5 seconds, eternity compressed, their fate teetered on the edge of annihilation. Then, silence. A beat. Another. Then Maria's voice shaking. "We did it." The stars began to drift into proper alignment. The gravitational readings dropped. Velocity normalized. They had broken free. On screen, the Starweaver shined once more, not as a drifting wreck, but a ship reborn. Admiral Voss appeared, eyes glowing a soft, majestic violet. "Captain Miller," he said quietly, "I believe, we owe humanity an apology and a thank you." Miller exhaled. Sweat clung to his brow. Pride burned in his chest. "That's not necessary, Admiral," he replied. "This is just who we are." The final slingshot. The ship creaked beneath them like a living beast that had just survived being flung from the jaws of a god. But they weren't done. There was one more gravity assist to go. The Starweaver and Endeavor, still locked together by fused coupling arrays, now floated in a calm void drifting between titans. Their trajectory had pulled them away from the brown dwarf's deadly pull, barely, but to escape the system entirely, they needed one last push. The final slingshot. Maria Diaz sat at her console, fingers twitching from caffeine, adrenaline, and 20 sleepless hours of calculations. A 3D overlay of the gas giant Juno Prime spun before her, glowing crimson and gold. The escape window was impossibly narrow. The orbit had shifted slightly again from solar wind interference. 3 minutes to final assist, she said softly. Margin for error, 2 seconds. Captain Miller stood behind her, arms crossed, his jaw tight. Across the bridge, the rest of the crew was silent, eyes locked on screens, hands ready over controls. We missed that window, Maria continued. We don't slingshot, we spiral, noted Miller said. Kate, increasing reactor output, she reported from engineering. But we've still only got 95% thrust. The drive shielding's holding, barely. We need 100. I know. A voice cracked in from medbay. Shut down drive ports 1 and 3. It was Tom, still recovering, voice weak but sharp. Miller turned to the screen. That's what almost killed us last time. Tom shook his head. Last time it worked. Connection point 2 took the least structural damage. It can handle the full load if you reinforce it manually. Kate cursed under her breath. Rerouting everything through a single point during max acceleration? That's suicide. Or Tom coughed, it's the reason we make it home. Maria's eyes darted between projections, then she froze. He's right, she whispered. The math checks out. Barely. Do it, Miller ordered. Kate stared at him for half a second, then turned back to her console. Shutting down ports 1 and 3. Rerouting now. Aboard the Starweaver, Admiral Voss stood tall in his command alcove. Around him, his crew moved with unprecedented urgency, reacting not to AI directives but to human timing. For the first time in Meridian history, their systems were synchronized to another species' navigational rhythm. Are you certain this is survivable? One of his engineers asked. Voss hesitated. Then no, but I believe in them. The words felt alien in his mouth. Not calculated, not logical. True. 1 minute, Maria said. The gas giant filled the viewport, titanic, blistered with churning storms the size of continents. Its gravity clawed at them, already tugging at every panel, every weld. Fusion drives at 100%, Kate called. Connection point 2 glowing, but stable. Thrusters aligned, Maria added. Escape vector plotted. Miller stepped forward, activating the comms to both ships. This is it, he said, voice firm. We're riding gravity like a wave. We miss the crest, we wipe out. But if we hit it, we get out, Kate finished. To the crew of the Starweaver, Miller continued, you trusted us. That mattered. To the crew of the Endeavor, you've already done the impossible. Now let's do it again. 30 seconds, Maria said. The ship began to shake. Alarms blinked yellow, then red. Power surged through the hull, channeling through the single remaining connection point like lightning through a needle. It burned blue, then white hot. 20 seconds. The artificial gravity inside the bridge buckled for a moment. Crew members gripped their chairs, teeth clenched. 15. The gas giant loomed. Its storms raged like apocalyptic whirlpools hungry for mass. 10. Power output steady, Kate grunted, but barely. 9, 8, 7. Miller looked to the medbay screen. Tom was watching, eyes locked, whispering something under his breath. 5, 4, 3. The ship buckled. The noise was deafening. The entire structure felt like it was being ripped apart by celestial hands. 2. Connection point still holding, Kate screamed. 1 now. Everything exploded into velocity. The twin ships were flung from the gas giant's grip like a slingshot stone tearing through atmosphere. The connection point blazed like a second sun. The hull screamed but held. Time stretched. The stars themselves warped and danced. Then stillness. Not silence, just peace. No red lights, no screams, no alarms. Only the steady pulse of survival. Maria's voice broke, first soft, almost unbelieving. We're clear. We're outside the system. Velocity within deceleration window. We made it. The bridge erupted in cheers, gasps, some people crying outright. Kate collapsed into her chair, laughing like a lunatic. Holy hell, we pulled it off. On the comms, the Starweaver crew could be heard shouting in overlapping Meridian languages, some harmonic, others chime-like, all in celebration. Then Admiral Voss's face returned to the main screen. His eyes were a rich violet streaked with gold, a color none of the humans had seen before. He said nothing for a long moment. Then Captain Miller, we misjudged your people. Miller shook his head. It happens. No, Voss said firmly, it should not have. Not for a species capable of such resolve. He looked off-screen as if addressing his entire crew. We thought advanced technology defined progress. But what we witnessed was something else. Something we had long forgotten. His eyes returned to Miller. Conviction. Miller turned to his crew. Broken, tired, glowing with the fire of achievement. This wasn't just a rescue, he said quietly. It was an introduction. Recognition. 3 months later, the ESS Endeavor sat in high orbit above Earth, its hull still scorched, its systems still undergoing repair. But its legacy had already outrun the ship itself. The Starweaver floated nearby, shining silver, once more refitted, operational, and no longer alone. Aboard the Endeavor's observation deck, the mood was uncharacteristically formal. Representatives from 12 different alien species, some tall and crystalline, others fluid and translucent, had gathered here, stepping foot on a human vessel for the first time in their histories. Diplomats, scientists, fleet commanders. Some came out of curiosity, others out of embarrassment. All came because they had heard. They had seen the footage, read the logs, analyzed the data, and they didn't come because humanity had built something powerful. They came because humanity had done the impossible on guts and gravity. Captain James Miller stood at the center of the crowd, dressed in formal black, the silver pin of the Earth fleet on his collar. Beside him stood Admiral Voss, no longer a skeptic, no longer distant. His eyes glowed a soft amber, signaling peace and respect. When we sent out our distress signal, Voss began addressing the gathering. We expected it to vanish into the void. Our own allies calculated the odds and chose to preserve their resources. Their logic was sound. He turned to Miller. But the humans chose differently. The room fell quiet. They arrived not with promises, not with superiority, but with a single message. We're here. Let's try. He paused. They were outgunned, out-teched, and outmatched in every metric we understood. And yet they saved us not just with their machines, but with their minds, their hands, their refusal to give up. Kate stood near the viewport, arms crossed, watching ships drift into orbit above Earth. She saw vessels shaped like ribbons, like orbs, like sleek spears of crystal. They came from worlds no human had ever set foot on. And yet now they were here at Earth's door, asking to learn, not to teach. Maria Diaz sat beside a young Meridian astroscientist, showing her how she'd mapped the final trajectory using a mix of instinct and math that baffled their AIs. You didn't use predictive quantum modeling, the alien asked. Nope, Maria said, biting into a protein bar. I use coffee gut instinct and a calculator older than I am. The alien blinked slowly. That is deeply unsettling. Maria grinned. Welcome to humanity. In the medbay, Tom Cooper leaned back, now fully recovered, watching the hollow feed of the ceremony on the deck above. A small alien child peeked around the door. The child had glimmering orange eyes and skin that shifted colors in the light. It stepped forward cautiously. Are you the one? The child asked. Tom tilted his head. The one what? The one who walked outside when the sky was trying to kill you. Tom smiled softly. Guess I am. The child's eyes shifted to violet, a color he now knew meant awe. Why would you do that? Tom leaned forward. Because the universe doesn't fix itself. Somebody has to step out first. Admiral Voss finished his speech, and so he said, let this be remembered not as a tale of technology, but as a moment when a young species taught us all something old, that courage, creativity, and compassion are not relics of the past, but the pillars of civilization. He stepped back, and Captain Miller took the floor. We didn't do this to impress anyone, he said. We didn't know who was on the other end of that signal. We just heard someone needed help. That's enough. He looked at the stars outside the viewport. We're not the biggest, the smartest, or the most advanced, but we're here now, and we've got something to offer. From that day on, the Endeavor was no longer just a rescue ship. It became a symbol, a reminder across the stars that heart still mattered. Diplomatic envoys were established. Scientific exchanges initiated. The Meridians, once skeptical and aloof, opened their archives to Earth. In return, they asked to study Earth's history, its explorers, its thinkers. They didn't ask for weapons. They asked for philosophy, for music, for the math scribbled by a woman named Maria Diaz on a napkin during her second caffeine crash. In Earth's orbit, the first joint monument between species was constructed. A floating plaque etched in both Terran Standard and Meridian code set adrift above the brown dwarf system they had escaped. It bore a single sentence. We survived not by power alone, but by the fire we carry within. Back on Earth, a child would one day ask, is it true that humans once saved a species just by flying close to gravity and hoping for the best? And a teacher would smile. No, they didn't hope. They believed, and then they acted. Because that's what humans do. They see the edge of the abyss, and they take one more step, and